We should move on to our second subject tonight. I understand we're covering some issues about the IRS and Lois Lerner.
Well, yeah, Lois Lerner was in charge of the, I guess, the 501c, tax-exempt, political organization kind of, social welfare kind of thing, where a lot of people use that as part of the campaign. And apparently there was 400 or 500 or 600 conservative groups that were targeted, and plus they asked the donors, and also Romney donors. They went after, the IRS pressured them, and from about 2010 to 2012.
Well, wasn't this the Tea Party, though?
Well,
wasn't it primarily targeted on the Tea Party?
It was Tea Party, but it was other conservative donors. And so there was, somewhere in the other 400 of those groups. And they did actually do equal attacks on the liberal groups, but they only, but the numbers on that have only come to 4 or 5 or 6.
Yes.
So even though they did look into some liberal groups, it seems like the ratio is somewhere 50 to 1, but maybe those numbers will be hashed out once there's a trial.
Well, I understand that they were.
But
targeting...
they really haven't seen any. We haven't seen any discovery because the FBI forgot about the case.
Oh, that's right.
They forgot about it.
They forgot.
So
they didn't even know who they assigned to look at the case, right?
So I mean, we haven't really seen any discovery. We haven't seen any testimony. We don't really know anything about it except from what reports are. It was like 50 to 1, or conservative liberal groups were being. Basically stymied, so they couldn't operate politically. Yeah.
Well, I understand that the reason we talk about Lois Lerner is because Lois Lerner was actually under oath, and she was supposed to. She came to Congress to provide information for the IRS over this potential catastrophe for the IRS, and she did something unique. What did she do?
Well, she took the Fifth, but she took it in a pretty strange way.
Wait a minute. If you take the Fifth, you're supposed to enunciate the Fifth Amendment before you open your mouth and say one word, and you're not supposed to be talking to the investigators and then say, I'll take the Fifth. So from what I remember was Lois Lerner decided to give a speech.
Well, she proclaimed her innocence, and now generally, now I think the Fifth should be much stronger than it is, but I'm just saying if you're looking procedurally, what a prosecutor would argue is that if you proclaim your innocence, she said, well, I didn't break any law, I didn't break any regulation. I mean, those statements lead her open to a cross-examination.
Well,
right?
wait a minute.
To a lot of facts.
If she starts telling the congressional group that are asking her questions that she's innocent and she broke no laws, she didn't just open the door. She threw the barn door open, ready to drive the car out the door, because then the congressional investigators would have the ability to ask her on every last question related to breaking federal law, breaking the codes of the IRS, and on top of that, what was her exact activities? Because she says, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, okay, if you didn't do anything wrong, what did you do, Ms. Lerner?
Yeah, so I mean, if she had said something, well, I didn't, drive my car on September 3rd from here to the Speedy Mart, then they could question her about that.
They'd be limited.
They'd be limited,
right?
But to make a broad statement that, I didn't break any law, I didn't break any regulation, that's opening the door quite a bit. So, and also, then it comes the question as well, did anything she talked about, would that open her to criminal prosecution? I mean, is there anything in any of those things? Well, yeah, there would be, if you're revealing confidential tax information, the IRS is not supposed to give away information that people give in their taxes.
Well, those are federal felonies if you talk about the privacy issues of a taxpayer.
And so what happened, all those names and donors and all that information was given to the Democratic Party so they could use that in the election, in the presidential election. And so that's definitely breaking a law. So
well, there's actually something bigger here, because after the beating of 210 and the election of a substantial amount of Republicans in both the House and the Senate, they wanted to make sure that didn't happen at the 2012 election.
Well,
so
that's speculation.
It's kind of strange how the timing was on all of these 503s. That had the word Tea Party.
I think it was 501c.
Yeah, 501c. They had the Tea Party, or no language about progressives, anything that had to do anything with a conservative position.
Well, but when you look at it, if you have the full force of the IRS working for one party to change the results of a presidential election, that's pretty important, because the IRS is pretty strong, and if they spend 2 years, working as part of the campaign.
Oh,
One of the
part
parties.
of the campaign.
Basically,
oh, that's part of the campaign.
They're on the campaign. That can have it may have had an influence on the election, maybe not. But you would think that it could if they went to 400 groups that never got any money, never did any.
You mean stymied their ability to get money, to get donations, to be able to be.
You're talking about the brunt of the federal government being used to influence the presidential campaign.
Well, I got a question. Do you believe the presidential campaign in 2012 was affected by this oppressive IRS action against all of these conservative groups?
Well, it's kind of like who was the guy who won all the bike races?
Oh, Lance Armstrong.
Okay, would he have won if he didn't take steroids? We'll never know.
We don't know.
So the same thing with the 212. We'll never know. We'll just never know.
But it seems a little coincidental that after the 2010 elections, that when the Tea Party was such an effective grassroots organization generally, and all these new 501(c)(3)s are coming out, and they're getting all ready. In fact, it was funny because the Tea Party kind of fell off the map after the 2010 election. We always thought, well, they just kind of disbanded because of this. But they didn't disband. What happened was the IRS was turned on high gear. But you know what's interesting? The IRS was saying it was one rogue agent out of Cincinnati that had done two rogue agents, two rogue IRS agents out of Cincinnati that somehow stopped 500 conservative groups from getting their tax-exempt status. Is that what really happened, Mark?
Well, as it turns out, there was more people involved.
Oh, more than Cincinnati?
And so we don't really know how far it goes. But some people, there was statements that once the Cincinnati people kind of had it pinned on them, they said, well, Washington, D.C. was telling us what to do, and so on and so forth.
So are you trying to tell me that people in Cincinnati weren't going to take the fall?
Well, we don't, like I said, the investigation is basically falling off the map because the FBI forgot about it.
The FBI forgot about it.
So,
But why isn't Congress called Lerner back? I understand she was suspended after that infamous taking the fifth. She was suspended with pay. By the way, she makes almost $200,000 a year. She was suspended with pay. And now she's just sitting at home, doing whatever she does on the side, and that seems a little odd.
Well, I don't think it's that odd. I mean, what happened is, she has a long history, in various government positions of influencing elections. She's been doing this for many years, and she's put pressure on candidates not to run and under various things. She was in the in different things. But when you look in the broader thing, there's also something interesting. If you look at Salinas versus Texas, okay,
yeah.
Now that's kind of a groundbreaking case, and in that case, it was 5-4 Supreme Court of the United States. There was no arrest, no Miranda rights given, and there was a party, and a couple guys got shot with a shotgun, and so they went to Salinas and they said, well, can we take a look at your shotgun? He said, yeah, the cops, you can have my shotgun. And then, then they started asking about him. They said, well, come on down to the police station, and just to say hi. And then they asked him, would the gun match the shells from the scene of the crime?
Yeah.
Or the scene of the murder? And all of a sudden, he got real quiet. He stopped talking. He shuffled his feet, bit his lip. And so basically, the cops said,
well, that was taking the fifth?
Well, they said that was an uncomfortable reaction, right?
Okay.
And so then the question was, could you bring this behavior up and the refusal to answer at trial?
Right.
And so Justice Alito, all right, and he said, well, he was free to leave. He didn't invoke his rights. And so he doesn't really get his Fifth Amendment rights. They can talk about the fact he didn't testify, the fact that he was acting kind of funny there. And so it's really interesting here. And this goes back to Lois Lerner. I don't think that she did the wisest thing. If she's going to plead the fifth, she just pled the fifth. Here, it's kind of the flip side. This guy doesn't say anything. He just stays silent. And they still say he didn't get the fifth. So there's the magic.
I think what we need to do.
But there's the magic words we talked about before, right? You're supposed to say, I want to talk to my attorney.
Yeah, right. And speaking of our attorney, we should go on to the next subject.